Hi, my name is Tiffany. Welcome to Present for Myself. Listen, I need you to stop believing parasites and toxic people. You just need to stop believing people who come into your world, pull on your resources, draw your energy, draw your time and attention, draw all the things from you that you have to offer to this world, and lie to you and tell you that you're not good enough, and tell you that you're not enough. They won't go anywhere. They refuse to leave. They still want to be in your world, but they want to continue to manipulate you and cause you to believe that you're not good enough for them or anyone else. They want you to believe that you don't have what it takes because they don't believe they have what it takes. And so they attach themselves to you like a parasite, and they live off of you. They live off of your energy. They live off of your resources. They live off of whatever acclaim that you might get. I once heard a group of guys talking. One of them said, one of the biggest ways you know you've hit the jackpot is if you have a pretty girl who has low self-esteem. I was flabbergasted. It is a pitiable thing when you feel like you have to go after someone who is clearly in need of building up because someone has already lied to them. And now you want to come into their world and validate those lies. All because you don't feel like you're good enough to go after someone who has a healthy sense of self, who is able to love themselves whether you love them or not. When parasitic and toxic people attach themselves to you, they bring three things, and I want you to be able to identify those things so that you don't find yourself staying longer than you need to stay or even connecting with someone like that in the first place. Number one, they bring confusion. They bring confusion because they send you mixed messages. Imagine someone who doesn't think you're smart, or at least that's what they tell you. But they're always coming to you for your advice on how to deal with certain issues. And then whenever you tell them, they take it as an opportunity to say, oh, well, I knew that. I really didn't need you to tell me. Yeah, they did. Or imagine someone who is always talking about the way that you look in a very negative or passive aggressive way. And you have already been validated, maybe by so many other people, that what you bring to the table with the way that you look or the way that you present yourself is something that a lot of people admire. Well, they're going to want that because it makes them look good to be with you, but they're not going to necessarily validate that, because if you get the full understanding of who you are, they're going to feel like that they shouldn't be with you. They don't deserve you. It's easier to keep you in a state of doubt and confusion. After a while, over time, they'll isolate you from the people that validate you. Over time, you'll begin to believe the lie. And so you won't know what's true anymore, especially if you begin to listen to their words more than anyone else. If they tell you that everyone else is lying to you and they continue to feed you mixed signals. I liken it to someone you cook a meal for. You cook the meal for them. The meal is obviously good. And then they eat it. And they keep eating it, and they keep asking for seconds, and they keep asking for you to make the meal over and over again, but they're always complaining about it. They're always telling you that it's too hot, it's too spicy, it's too salty, it's too sweet, it's too whatever it happens to be, but they still want you to continue to make it. What is that sending to you? It's telling you that they want what you have. They want to attach themselves to what it is that you bring to the table. They just don't want you to know that what you bring to the table is worthy. If they convince you that it's not, then they keep you working to make it better. They keep you working for their time and for, their attention. I hesitate to even drop the word narcissism and things like that in here. These are all, many of this stuff is like narcissistic traits or traits of people who are in the dark triad or tetrad or whatever you want to call it. But what I'm just trying to do is speak to you from a real, very real, taking out all the psychological terms and everything. This is what it feels like. It feels like making a meal for someone that continues to complain, but they still want the meal. It's frustrating and it's confusing, and it sends a double message, and that's what they want, because they know that you have something that they desire, that they want, that helps them, that sustains them, that nourishes them, but they don't want you to have that as a strength and as a power or feel good in that energy. Because the moment that you begin to see who you are, then you can also see, unfortunately for them, who they are. The number two thing that they like to bring into your life, people who are toxic and parasitic, is deception. And a lot of times this deception will show up in gaslighting and passive aggressive behavior. It's all about making you misinterpret the facts. Just remember that deception is always having to do with there are facts at play, but you are being misled away from the facts. So they'll bring deception into your life. They'll bring deception into your life so that you don't trust your intuition. They'll bring deception into your life so that you don't even trust your actual experiences. I once dated a guy who wrote something out, and he wrote this thing out, and I had it in my hands, and I said, no, you wrote this. I know that you wrote this. And he looked me right in my eyes, and I knew his signature, I knew his handwriting and everything, and said, I didn't write that. He signed it, had signed it and everything. And he said, I didn't write that. I was like, what fresh hell is this? That is the level of crazy making and deception that a parasitic person can possibly bring into your life. You see things, you see factual things right in your face, and they'll tell you that it didn't happen. It wasn't spoken. It wasn't said. That is why we have a culture that is so full of cover your own behind. And they'll tell you, because if you don't, people will bold-faced lie to you and on you. I have seen it happen. People who still want you to be there, people who still want you to give of your time and your talent and your energy and your resources and everything that you bring to the team, they will lead you to believe that something's wrong with you. So yeah, that's the second way that parasitic people, institutions, whoever stay in your world, they'll continue to deceive you. And as long as you believe it, they're in the clear. And the third way is through distraction. When I tell you that parasitic, manipulative, toxic people are just really good at distracting you from what it is that you possibly could see in them if you weren't distracted. And many times this comes through things, and I'm sure you've all heard of the term, and if you haven't, there's a term called love bombing. Love bombing, a lot of times when we talk about it, it has to do with narcissism. And narcissism is a really big catchword for many, many things these days. And I've now begun to see a lot of people make posts on social media and give commentary, and they'll say things like, everything's not narcissism. You need to stop with all this. This is a person is a narcissist, and that person is a narcissist, and because it's not all of that. And yeah, that's true. It's true. But I don't want people to get so comfortable disparaging those who believe that they have been narcissistically abused, that the person who, or the people who are suffering, begin to doubt themselves, because it's already hard enough for people to see. It's already so hard for people to understand. It's such a sneaky and manipulative way of being that a lot of times these people are already questioning themselves. So I would take with a grain of salt, yes, a lot of the teaching and coaching and all that's been done about narcissism, but not so much that you forget there is a reason that this teaching became necessary in the first place. People are amongst us who live off of the supply that we offer. So don't let people trick you into believing that what you're feeling and seeing isn't true. By the same token, use balance. And don't just be out here diagnosing people. I had to say that because it's kind of irritating when you're always seeing people post here lately, everything's not narcissism. No, but enough stuff is. Number 3, again, is through distraction. Distraction in the form many times of love bombing. Love bombing is one of those things that, if you think about the word in and of itself, love bombing, when you think about the fact that a bomb goes off, and when a bomb goes off, it overwhelms everyone and everything, and lots of shrapnel or whatever, all of the debris, and you can't see, and there's smoke and there's dust everywhere. And it's like, it takes a moment to clear. And then once everything settles, you're like, oh, this is what this is. But by that time, the destruction has already been done. People who will love bomb do so in order to bring you in such a way that you lose your faculties and you're overwhelmed because you have such a need to be cared for, at least that's what they see, that you don't pay attention to the red flags many times. Love bombing in and of itself was something that came about in the 70s, and you can do your research on it through a religious organization that many people believe to be a cult. And they used love bombing as a means of kind of blindsiding the people that came into that cult so that they couldn't really look around and necessarily see the red flags. It is not just used in narcissistic relationships. It can be used through gangs can do love bombing when they bring someone in and they make them feel like so loved and like, oh, we're just brotherly and sisterly here and this is your family. And that person just gets overwhelmed with affection and attention to where they can't really see the red flags until it's too late. Religious organizations and cults can love bomb. Jobs can love bomb. The first day when they're giving you all of the paraphernalia and all the beautiful things that you see, and then you find yourself 6 weeks into the situation going, what in the world is going on here? It's all about distracting you from the red flags. The red flags that would typically tell you to run are obscured by the dozen roses that you're sent every weekend, and by the jewelry and by the candy and the chocolates and the phone calls every morning telling you that they love you and that you're everything, and that, oh, how hasn't someone else snapped you up already? Doing everything exactly the way you want to 100th degree, to where you are just walking around on cloud nine and you can't believe it. The difference between, let's say, a person who has a love language of just being a giver and a person who is a love bomber is that love bombing typically is not sustainable. You know, coming by your apartment every morning with breakfast on their way to work, and then jumping into rush hour traffic and going to work, and making you feel like, oh my God, they get up an hour early every day to bring me breakfast. And then you imagine a life of something like that. Yeah, that's probably not going to be sustainable. It only gets sustained long enough to get you in. And oftentimes after the love bombing comes to an end, then you're going to go to the number 2 thing that I was talking about, and even the number 1 thing, and that's going to be confusion and deception, gaslighting. But that person who maybe comes to your office before you get there and they ask your coworker to leave a muffin on your desk, that's not necessarily love bombing. Maybe they do it a couple of times a month, you know, and it just feels good to know that they were here, they thought about you, and, you know, they had a little time on their hands, and they know that that's what you like for breakfast. That's not necessarily love bombing. Love bombing is something that's not as sustainable, and it's usually done, you know, in this magnificent way, or it's done in such a way that they're listening for what you don't have or what they don't feel that you've had, and they want to make sure that they do it. But they're only going to do it long enough to get you, and then you're trapped. So don't be distracted, don't be deceived, and don't be confused by individuals who seek to attach themselves to you so that they can fulfill their supply, so that they can be nourished off of what it is they continue to tell you that you lack, but somehow they seem to still find you as a resource to fill them up. These people press in. You are not stupid, and you are not someone who, you know, is deserving to be punished for the decisions and the choices that you've made. You're just someone who obviously were vulnerable at a certain time, or maybe you have an insecure attachment style, and as a result, you find yourself attracting people who themselves have insecure attachment styles, or who are just manipulative and just succubuses in their own way. I get really frustrated when I think about people who take advantage of people like that, but it happens. I want you to leave this video thinking, am I in that kind of relationship with someone? Am I in a relationship where I am giving and giving and giving and still being told that I'm not enough no matter what I do? Am I in a relationship where I'm constantly being lied to and subjected to gaslighting and being made to feel like what I see is not real, even though the facts are truly there? Am I in a relationship where someone started out telling me that they were going to give me the world, and now I can barely get them to return a phone call? Am I in a relationship where I was promised beauty, and all I see in front of me is tragedy and ugliness and pain, and I was promised that they were going to make me laugh, but all I do is cry, and all I feel is hurt? If you're in that type of relationship, then it's time to check and balance some things. And for some of you, it may be time to exit. Whatever it is, I need for you to understand that you are enough. You are enough. You came into this world enough. You don't have to walk around trying to convince another human being who is not better than you. I don't care what they do. I don't care what kind of acclaim or fame or whatever they bring to this worldly structure. No one's better than anyone. We're all humans in the process of having this experience. And yet some of us have made it our business to think we can mount someone else and ride them into the great beyond, like they're some sort of steed or beast of burden. You're not a beast of burden. You're a human being just like they are. I had a situation when I was a little girl, when I was walking home from school, And I was walking home from school with someone who could run faster than me. We were, little kids. And a dog, a big, huge Doberman Pinscher, jumped off the porch and began running towards us. That dog could have tore us from limb to limb. It was big and it was ferocious. The moment I set myself to start running, this other kid jumped on my back and wrapped their arms and legs around my torso because they were so afraid and expected me to run with them on my back. If that is not a metaphor for how a parasitic person is, I don't know what is. Fortunately, the owner of the dog, with the dog only a few feet from us, stepped out onto the porch and called the dog off. Some of you are dealing with people who are weighing you down and making your life very dangerous. Whether they do it because they're afraid, like this person did to me when they jumped on my back, or whether they do it because they are just sociopathic and they don't, they know that it's wrong and they do it anyway, or psychopathic, where some of them it just ain't registering. I don't care why they do it. The fact is, it's being done and you need to do something about that. You are enough. Anyone who tells you that they're not a true friend, they're not a true lover, they're not a true partner, they're not a true teammate. They are themselves a person who needs to tap into their source, because you ain't it. Be present for yourself.